Hello, dear hearts. How are you? Scorpio season meltdown. We're approaching the new moon in Scorpio, and I wanted to give you a quick astrological update for this end of November in accordance with the private audio files that are being released based on Lilith in Scorpio for the next 2 months, and also Lilith in Scorpio in general, and how her transit into Sagittarius at the end of this year will take certain key teachings from the intensity of her being exalted and very well placed in Scorpio this last 9 months. So this month is definitely bringing us to our knees, like the general Scorpionic theme does when on that Scorpio-Taurus axis. It's always very, very personal. And the Black Moon Lilith is in Scorpio, and she will continue to be in Scorpio until the end of December 2025. In saying this though, this particular new moon in Scorpio is going to be met with Mercury returning back into Scorpio, retrograding back into Scorpio, and Venus being in Scorpio, as well as the Black Moon Lilith. And the other very interesting point is the way the Sun is in opposition with Uranus, because Uranus has retrograded back into Taurus as well. So the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, the Black Moon Lilith, and Venus all in Scorpio as key placements in our skies. Jupiter in Cancer making an exquisite complementary trine to all that water. And then the watery understanding of the Piscean elements, because we have, Neptune and Saturn working on these last degrees again of Pisces and the early degrees of Aries. So there's just so much, impossible emotional processing that's about to take place. But I'm particularly interested in Scorpio Stelliums, and there are many, many reasons for this. One being that when you're working with the intensity of Scorpio, when you're working with what the transformative portal can do, especially when we're dealing with innocence that can be so well overrated, and in fact it should be underrated, because when we're talking about purity in the concentrated energy of Scorpio, it's actually something quite impossible to process because of its uncut nature, like an uncut diamond. And therefore it should be underrated, because it has honesty, it has potential, it has authenticity. It's not something we've polished or worked on. It is as it is, in its pure state. But there's so much sincerity there. So the concentrated stellium in Scorpio, these 5 key placements, hammering us with Uranus in opposition, and then so much other water energy trining, with the Piscean and Jupiterian energy trining all that Scorpio. This end of month is going to be a flood, an absolute flood of true, raw, humbling, and also powerfully realistic, sane doorways into what's really taking place in our lives and in the world around us. If you're wondering where this art was from right now that I was just pointing out to you, I'll definitely put it in the comments. It's going to be easier that way. But I think it's worth looking at one more time. You see the eagle. Now, what child, could be so comfortable holding a skeleton there? A skull cup, a skeleton head. Only that of a scorpionic presence, right? I mean, there's infinite treasures in this particular art piece, not to mention this serpentine energy as well. That is, you know, also linked to a certain facing our inner demons, facing our inner setbacks, our inner fears. What about this light? Look at that. I mean, I want to share this all because I've been working with this image a lot in the private Lilith Shamanic, Lilith and Scorpio private audio talks, which everyone will get a chance to listen to because the information is timeless, but it does have a strong help when we talk about the end of year. And I wanted to bring a little bit of this symbology and this artwork into what I'm telling you because, you know, this artist has embodied Scorpio really well. We're looking at Martian-like terrain because the initial authentic ruler of Scorpio prior to Pluto was actually Mars, which makes a lot of sense. And that was before Pluto was discovered. But in this image, you know, there's also a fascinating component of the purity of the child, embracing the skeletal, you know, holding a skeletal head, you know, a skull head, a baby, fearlessly holding that. And what that means is that the purity and the innocence of this particular, you know, zodiac sign, which is so concentrated and extreme and personal, what it's all about deep down is actually coming to terms with reality in the most crude, raw and authentic way. Death is where the scorpionic energy dwells. It lives in the death portal. It doesn't live in the life portal. It understands death much more than it understands living. And it's not at all uncomfortable with change. However, the depth of the sign can come into this reality in a very attached way, but not in a way that avoids change. It wants constant change, but it does like circumstances to develop. So there's a commitment oriented mindset, just as there is on the opposite side of the axis with the Taurian energy that's very committed and doesn't give up. So, you know, I haven't read into any information of what the actual artist has written about his art, but he simply called it Scorpio, the signs of the zodiac, Scorpio, and there's not much of a description there, but you know, for anyone that understands symbolism and has worked with it and understands astrology, I mean, this is for me by far an incredible capturing of everything that the sign is. Hence why I've been working with it and wanted everyone to receive as much benefit as they can from the imagery, just to get a more direct understanding. Well, instead of writing it in the comments, I'll just tell you right now. It's Jofra, the famous Jofra. Yes, he was from Holland. And I think it's good to get a little bit of a vibe of the, you know, the wooden snake year that we're in. Another incredible artist. This artwork is actually a dear friend on the path has created this, Leanne Deringer, and the publications that have done this are Norbu Publications, and I just find this incredible. Look at it. So yes, the wooden snake, we still have a few months of it. It's no coincidence that the black moon Lilith is in Scorpio during a wooden snake lunar year, which will finish after the traditional Western New Year, as we'll move into the year of the horse. So, you know, February and March are also transitory points in the Lunar New Year. But this, serpentine energy with Scorpio is incredible. I mean, Lilith in Scorpio, who rules the terrain of snakes, who absolutely, thrives on understanding the power of what that can offer, the metamorphosis involved in serpentine energy, and the polarities, the extreme polarities, in that vibration. It's a very vibrational, instinctual species, right? That carries a lot of wisdom and insight without needing much processing of information. It's just, again, an instinctual, immediate response. So, the wooden snake in Eastern astrology, and the beauty of this art, enhanced by the incredible, now me bringing into this again, powerful Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, it's almost like she can't fail. It's not every year that the Black Moon Lilith is in Scorpio. This is every 9 to 10 years she goes through Scorpio in her mean and true position. And the snake year is every 12 years, right? And the wooden snake, well, that's even rarer. So what I'm trying to explain to you is the next time Lilith is in Scorpio going through our calendar year, it won't be when the year of the snake is taking place. Most likely not. So this particular PowerPoint for her, in terms of every celestial situation supporting her returning to her throne, the Black Moon Lilith, is actually saying, in terms of a key message or paragraph, it's time for retribution. It's time for those to pay who are indebted. Where wrong has taken place, divine order and divine justice will balance things out worldwide and individually. We might feel uncomfortable with things that have happened in our lives, with interactions, with personal situations, but this, concentrated stellium in our skies at the end of November, literally coming from the angle of, let's not play around with people's lives, let's not joke around with our own intentions. Literally from the 17th of November right up until the end of November, you'll be feeling the power of this stellium. And if you want to get even more concentrated, it's from the 17th until the 24th of November, where you'll have every scorpionic tendency being available. And what that means is, where does Scorpio talk to you in your own personal stars? Where is Scorpio in your own star map? Is Scorpio in the first house, second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house? Where in the 12 houses is your Scorpio-Taurus axis? What planets is it in? At what degree? Maybe you don't have anything in Scorpio, but you still need to see what house you have Scorpio placed and Taurus placed, because they will be impacted, even if it's in a humble way. For those who have more than 2 planets in Scorpio, you need to be highly aware of your own reactions these next couple of weeks, because you will have so much to process, and the changes that will be happening at a far more grander speed than the typical average person who doesn't have as much Scorpio in their star maps. So I'm personally looking forward to the challenges that tend to bring out the best in the participants with such concentrated energy. I mean, if you want to understand the concept of intention making around a new moon in Scorpio, it's actually about the bigger deals. It's about life and death. It's about, what is this life all about? Why are we here? It's about understanding who has departed. It's about respecting those that have left for us, that have died for us, that we might not even know how they've impacted our lives. Working with the energy death in a way that is grateful, but also not being scared to bring that energy into our own lives, to not have fear in embracing ends. Many forced ends will happen. The temple is calling. When the the hierarchy of the universe, of humanity, the hierarchy of this entire cosmological system, when they command change, there is literally nothing anyone can do. And that change in a Scorpionic Taurine extreme polarity setting doesn't bring it to us with sugar on top. You have to go with the change, or you won't be able to hold under. It will be too important, the developments. And what Scorpio likes to do is defend itself. It's, very rarely does Scorpio attack. Scorpio reacts, the stinger. It's a reaction to feeling threatened. So you don't want to go into a Scorpio's territory and make them feel harmed, or make them feel as though they've been harmed, or provoke them being harmful. You don't want to have that played. You want to understand the delicacy of what the stinger is all about. This is a point of response, reaction. And Scorpio is definitely one of the only star signs in our skies that can really actually contain. They don't use that stinger for nothing. It's quite a you could say last resort response. So I'm very optimistic with this eagle, because that's exactly what takes place. As close to the earth and the deep blue that the Scorpionic energy is, there's also such a vastness. There's the highest peak. Such are the extremes. I mean, many are fearful of this sign, and by all means we should be, because they're not easy. They're not easy to process, to understand. If you're living in the lap of what has died, if you're living in the death portal, if you're not living in the lap of the living and what is so-called this reality, you're more ready to go through the deep changes that are needed, to have that catalyst quality, but also be very stable and committed in what you give yourself to. That's Scorpio. In that process, it can be terrifying for anybody else, because who can handle constant change within a circumstance that doesn't give up? If you see its opposition, Taurus, it doesn't want the constant change. It just wants the commitment. It's on the other extreme. So, I mean, the temple has literally said, when we talk about the temple, we're talking about divinity. We're talking about this time of year and what the astrological meaning is for everybody. It is not about giving up. It is about endurance, but it's also about not fearing change, inner change, outer change, and things that we can't intellectualize. We can call it secret change, things that we can't even understand yet. We might only see the reasons or the whys much, much later down the track in the scheme of everything in the universe. But intentions have to be pure these next couple of weeks. We have to be really patient, because the subconscious will be emptied out. And I'm laughing because your average Scorpionic person that has a lot of Scorpio in their star maps, they're emptying out their subconscious quite confidently. It's not a hard thing for them to do, and to get into the depths of other people's psyches as well, and to be the psychologist, be the counselor, be the physician. They can do all this for others, but very few can do it for them. And I guess that's why the stinger is such a delicate part of the Scorpio symbolism. It's there for a reason. Don't abuse. If there was one star sign that knows abuse, it's Scorpio. It knows when the line has been crossed. It has a really good way of working with the scales in all things. And once again, thank you to Jofra, the great artist, who has embodied the star signs so well. The divine scales. It's quite an important thing, isn't it? Weighing your heart to a feather. Scorpio does want to be able one day at some point to look back and not feel the weight of the world in their heart. to be as light as a feather. But can they do that like their neighbor, Libra? Can they be as light as a feather like their neighbor, Libra? Can they be, you know, capable of such a freedom? We all have our place, we all have our role in the universe, as do the constellations and how they impact the earth. You know, what if we just have to accept Scorpio is deep? The weight is going to be there. And it's there because it brings gravity. It brings a sense of something, you know, in amidst everything. And that can be very challenging for those that prefer to not see footprints, you know, in the sand. But then how will you ever know if someone was always there with you? So I'm looking forward to all this. I think it's an easy period if we surrender a bit to the cleaning and the developments in the psyche. The Black Moon Lilith, she's never going to be uncomfortable in Scorpio, so she's going to take revenge when needed, defend the abused, definitely, personally and worldwide, and also return to her throne in full power, which she's done all this year, but actually to a point now where, you know, those who are true will be seen. Those who are holding the best intentions for the world, for humanity, for everyone will be seen. Those who have been selfish or having their own kind of personal agendas that aren't considering the masses, that aren't considering universal order and the best for everyone, they will also be definitely exposed. But what Black Moon Lilith does is reminds them who the true power is. And where there's Scorpio Taurus, there's always going to be the play of power, the play of cosmic order, divine law and order, and hierarchy. And we can always say in some dimension there's no such thing as hierarchy, fine. But where there's time, there's a system. And we're bound to that right now. So, you know, here we are trying to be free of it all, but also understanding within the system that we're in, there is definitely a hierarchy. And those who serve the greater good, they definitely sit on the pinnacle of everything, but are very, very patient. So appreciate the protector energy of Scorpio. So much protection. And always tap into the highest frequency of the sign. Don't fear it, because if you're working with the lower energy, you're going to only expose yourself to fear, to negative reactions, to negativity, to paranoia, to suspicion, to perversions, to addictions, to deep attachments, to complexities, you know, in our own psychological processing capacity. If we tap into the highest point, we'll become very spiritual. We'll become enlightened. We'll also be fearless and empowered, and much higher than what we expected, you know, in terms of our capacity to, well, serve the greater good and make that conscious choice to do so. I guess that's that. The new moon in Scorpio is going to be incredibly helpful. But not easy to digest if you're not ready to embrace that bare, raw, naked authenticity of what it wants to share and offer. I'm really grateful to be able to, I guess, present all of this incredible work with you, and Serpentine energy is continuing to be very, very sacred. It is by far one of the most ancient and important representations of the Great Mother Goddess and the sacred feminine. And we mustn't fear that. We mustn't fear the wisdom involved. Where there's venom, where there's poison, where there's, you know, all that, I guess, risky-pisky business, there's so much truth too, you know. That's the extremes. That's why Serpentine energy is so compatible with Lilith, in Scorpio particularly, because we're dealing with extremes. the most complete awakening and the darkest degree of the psyche. They're both there. So yes, darlings, thought I'd share all this. Don't forget to email me about getting your last chance audios for Lilith and Scorpio exclusive and private. And apart from that, comment away, let me know your thoughts. And yeah, cheers to the Star Wars fans of the world. I'm very much a fan. I've always been. I think anything Scorpionic really does value the play between light and dark and going beyond that. So something appropriate for this impossible November month. Okay, darlings, may all be auspicious. Bye.